Good evening, everybody. John Prusak here from Snowgoer Magazine, your host for this week's Snowgoer Live. Appreciate y'all joining us. Hopefully, the crowd will build as we get going here. Snowgoer Live is our relatively new show where every Thursday night we're going to talk about all things snowmobiling. We'll talk about racing and trail riding and rumors and very soon new 2026 machines and all sorts of things. We'll have fun doing it. We have a couple of really fun guests tonight that I'm really excited to have join us, because not only are they great spokespeople for the sport and interesting people to talk to, they're also personal friends, and also both very talkative people that I think you're going to enjoy. Quick catch up on what we've been doing recently. Since last week, we did not have a show because, quite frankly, I was gone riding some 2026 snowmobiles that I can't tell you about yet, but I will soon, I promise. But aside from that, been on a couple other rides here in the upper Midwest. One really good one in far northern Minnesota, one kind of marginal one around the Lake Mille Lacs area, where we were kind of putting down first tracks after some snow last week. But either way, it felt great to get out. Winter like this, I know some of you folks in Michigan and some people in New York are having an absolutely fabulous winter. Other people, it's more spotty. When you get a chance, get out and turn the track. You'll be glad you did, even if you got a trailer a little ways. So our Snowgoer Live show is sponsored, as always, we have three sponsors. One is Arctiva, maker of a complete line of snowmobile outerwear and gear and accessories. They've got you covered, whether you want a jacket, bibs, boots, gloves, base layer, you name it. They can be found at arctiva.com. We're also sponsored by their sister brand, Z1R. They make a complete line of helmets, whether you want a modular, a full face, a motocross style. They also make a bunch of stuff for the motorcycle industry. You can learn more at z1r.com. Our third sponsor is Gates with their Gates G-Force belts, which work great on snowmobiles, but they're also available for all your power sports equipment. Whether you want them for an ATV or a side-by-side, you can learn more at gates.com. So we're still waiting on the Arctic Cat news. We'll maybe kick that around with our guests here in a little bit. You know, the rumor mill continues to crank up, and some of the stuff seems like it's maybe forming a little bit more with one brand in particular. We'll see if it comes to fruition. We know some paperwork is being exchanged and some tours are being housed and things like that. So hopefully Arctic Cat has a new owner soon. So we'll wait anxiously and see. Other big news recently all comes from the racing world. We had a new winner at the Soo-Eye 500, where the Revering boys from Minnesota, with part of Team Nelson, won the Soo-Eye 500, a very competitive race, a very interesting race. The Soo always has 100 great stories, and it's one of those, when we had Snow Week magazine around, I kind of wish I had like a 30-page section you could fill, because if you interviewed each and every racer, everybody has a story of what happened to them over the course of the day. But the Reverings survived it all and came across the checkered flag first. In snowcross, but that same weekend, the five-time ex-champion Elias Ischel got injured, broke his thumb, which we'll talk thumbs with one of our guests here in a little bit. But that's parked him for a little bit. He did some starting parks up at the Grand Prix de Valcourt, but Emil Haar, his main rival on the circuit, cleaned up in his stead, won both nights, and now has command of the points championship in snowcross. So we'll see how long Elias is out. But that's always interesting. Aside from that, the Snow Outlaws got rolling recently, a couple weekends ago. We got that story on snowgoer.com, and they're racing again this coming weekend. The Enduro circuit, Myra, very close points race. Well, again, we'll get into that in a little bit with one of our guests. The Ovals guys were at Eganville, then they were at Valcourt. Even the hill climb circuit is up and running. So a lot of stuff going on, events going on, all sorts of stuff. If you're a snowmobiler, there's plenty to pay attention to. Just give it a shot. But with all of that racing, kind of going on, it only seems appropriate to bring up my first guest, a guy I've known for getting close to 30 years now, Mr. Chris Riley. How you doing, Mr. Chris?
I'm doing great, John. Thanks for inviting me on your program here. It's an honor. Appreciate it.
Well, it's an honor to have you on. I've been on your show a couple times, and now we turned this microphone around, so that's
Perfect.
fun. So you and I have known each other, as I said, forever. When I first met you, you were the driver of the red Lucky Number 7 Formula Skidoo, and you were a guy who also was brave enough to write up a few stories for us and for Winning Edge. Talk about those early days in racing and how that led to being a storyteller about racing.
Thank you for asking. It's really, and thumbs up, by the way. I got to show my stupid thumb here. That's a whole other story. Bottom line, John, like most of us, I grew up in Southwest Michigan as a farm kid, and then I moved to the Eastern UP trail road, but always wanted to drag race. Always wanted to get into it. And
Right.
finally, in 89, 90, I got into it. And unfortunately, I won a trophy. And that's the most expensive trophy I've ever won. It has cost me a lot of relationships, a lot of money, a lot of friends over the years. But
Yeah.
it was really cool. And that kind of grew into racing back when stock was big. I mean, you could go in the early to mid 90s and have 25, 30 sleds in your class. And I'm talking the 583 Skidoo class, right?
Yeah.
And that, again, fueled the enthusiasm. Working with you at Snowgoer, working with Winning Edge. I worked with, wrote for Michigan Snowmobile Magazine, also did some promoting, actually a lot of promoting, and got into the announcing. So it all kind of snowballed into a career change, which I think kind of ties this all together more or less for the people who don't know me. I went to work for Kimpex in late 96. And then when 98 hit, the winter 98, you remember that, John?
I do.
That was not fun for any of us in the industry. Kimpex suffered some setbacks, we'll call it that, and Parts Unlimited, actually, I got a call from them to go to work for them. So I worked for them, and it's just kind of all snowballs from there.
Going back to the racing era, I mean, there's a lot of people that want to, compete. And there's a lot of people who, are willing to especially try something like grass rides, which is something that that you gave your run at. Not a lot of people transition to being a storyteller. But somehow you it seems like, to me anyway, given what you used to turn into us way back then, you were kind of a natural at that you want to tell. You didn't want just people to see snowmobiles going down the track. You wanted to let people know there's a story behind those snowmobiles and those people that built those snowmobiles.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the human side of the sport and the mechanical side of the sport and the emotional side of our sport, which is a very important thing. I mean, brand loyalty in our sport, huge to this day. I mean, huge. I just thought when I was trying to, and I was really green. I'm still not real great at the writing part, but you want to educate, inform, and entertain people on what's going on. Same thing for doing in the announcing. I'm not the big huckster announcer. You just want to let people know what's happening and try to be entertaining in the process. But yeah, I really enjoy the writing part of it. I think I changed some things in the way we looked at drag racing back then, the ice racing and then the grass racing. Now it's snow racing. Snow drags are huge. Asphalt racing's big now. But yeah, thank you for the compliment. It was fun working. It was stress and pressure. And that was back when we were faxing, sending you rolls of film and faxing you stories and trying to make it all work. It's light years ago, it seems like.
My guest again is Chris Riley, the voice and sound and energy and everything behind Super Sled Online. And let's jump right into that with Super Sled Online. So this thing you have created has become a monster. It is for a lot of people, it is the new Bible for high performance snowmobiling, especially straight line, enduro guys, a lot of that. It's can't miss viewing on YouTube and listening on Wednesday nights. Where did the idea first come from? And did you have any idea when you launched this Super Sled thing that it would be a Facebook group and a radio program?
No, I had no idea. In fact, John, you know the backstory. When I started Super Sled, it was to become a magazine to kind of be similar, but more drag race oriented than what we had with Snow Week. But I'm a smart guy that decided to start to do a print publication right when the internet hit, right when print magazines took a crap, excuse my language, but it just kind of faded away. So we got one issue put together, and that remains probably the biggest and most embarrassing business failure of my entire life was the Super Sled magazine that got one issue out. Then through a bunch of other issues and personal deals and stuff, I ended up moving to North Carolina and working for Evinrude Outboards with BRP for a while. So I kind of got out of the sled stuff, but then I kicked it back going in 2009 just for giggles, made it a group page, and then started the business page, which is what people check us out on now on the podcast and all that. But it just one thing evolved into another. And then back when I had some health challenges back in 2013 and on, I wasn't going to be able to be on the road as much as I wanted to be. So I made it my full-time gig, and it doesn't make a lot of money, but it keeps it self-supporting, and it's fun, and I enjoy it, and it's a chance to promote what I love. And I love this sport. I love the trail ride and I love the drag. I love it, all of it. And it's fun to be able to try to bring new people in while still hanging out with old people like you.
I think you just called me old, you son.
Well, I'm older than you are.
I don't know about that. the passion you feel for this stuff comes through in every one of your episodes and every one of your statements and every one of your posts. I mean, you can just feel it ooze out of you that that this is a guy who really cares about all these sports. Is it just something that's just inbred in you?
I don't know. I don't know. I can't explain it. It's just I liked snowmobiles when I was a little kid. I used to ride in front of my dad, and then I got on the Elan and then the TNT, and then one thing leads to another. And then in 1975, my aunt got a snow twister, the free air.
Nice.
And I don't know if she's watching this, but I flipped that sled over. First sled ever wrecked. And that scared the hell out of me and made me realize you might want to not do that the way I was doing it. But I just enjoy it. I love the sport and the people and the excitement. It's 12 months a year, John. It doesn't stop for me. And I know you're involved with it year round as well.
Absolutely. The super sled thing, as you said, your love of straight line racing in particular ties into that year round thing.
Sure.
From the asphalt to the dirt to the grass to the ice to the snow. It's anybody who's making horsepower, it's a great watch. But is there a favorite, especially as Chris Riley has maybe gotten a few more miles or laps around the sun? Do you have a favorite in all these different aspects of straight line racing?
Well, I'm going to talk about ovals too, if you don't mind. But straight line stuff. First, I like the asphalt now to do it because I'm old and it's easy. Other than it's hot out, and I don't like being hot. But it's a lot of fun. You can bracket race. Anybody can do it. They say anybody can do it. It's a very specific skill set that I don't have, but I still enjoy going down the racetrack. And I try to do some heads up stuff as well. But I enjoy that. Grass is the biggest thing going for drag racing. Ice drag racing is falling on hard times. Snow drag racing is hot right now for winter racing. And then the Snow Outlaws, which are in another stratosphere of what we're talking about. But I always loved oval racing as a little kid, being a fan of it. And I have a newfound love of it the last several years. And I really enjoy working that side of the sport as well now.
Yeah. Let's talk oval racing for a second.
Sure.
It seems like, started seeing Chris over at the World Championship, usually on vintage weekend first. But more the last few years coming over for late model weekend as well. I know you got a lot of friends in that aspect of racing, but also there's something special about the speed, about the machines, and just everything about it, don't you think?
Absolutely. I'm going to probably make people mad right now, but I think oval racing is probably the most spectator friendly of all the different sports we cover at Super Sled, simply because it's a little bit longer action. There's a little bit more back and forth competition, a little more. And I'm not saying drag racers aren't very talented riders, because they are, but the oval stuff, it just offers a little bit more that people want to see. And I enjoy all of it, man. I love the oval enduro stuff, the Formula 3, all of it, the vintage, the champ. There's nothing about racing I don't like. And I love the drag stuff too.
Yep. There's let's just keep going down this road, since we're talking about different aspects of the sport. I know you also deeply care about enduro racing.
Absolutely.
It's something you used to cover for us at Snow Week way back in the day.
People forget that.
For us and different things like that. And to this day, I know it's still a passion of yours. A lot going on in enduro racing these days.
Absolutely. It is. With the Myra Race Network, they're doing a great job. It's on Flow as well. It is. And you mentioned the Sioux in your prologue there, your prelude to the show. It is so cool. It's drama. It's pit stops. It's strategy. It's tuning. It's stuff breaking and people having to fix stuff and keep a track of points. I mean, I got the points here. Indulge me for a minute. I mean, Myra, right now, you got the 67 Who's Racing team in first at 1578, 1520. You got Mickey's Factory Racing, DeWalt and Hicks at 1520. At 1500, you got the number 72 team with Stroh and Shoemaker. It's tight racing. And I think you can get about 610 points for a win, something like that. Well, last weekend at Gaylord, they had 624. That's what DeWalt got, and they took the pole and everything. They didn't get the pole. But overall, I mean, it's exciting racing. People love NASCAR. It's NASCAR for snowmobiles, and it always has been.
One thing I like about it is, it has happened in the history of NASCAR, but not very often, where a team will get 3 laps down and will somehow get back in the run.
Yep.
It happens at events like the Sioux and even some of the 300 lappers and stuff that they have at some of the other places, where a team, you can't write them off. They go in, they get a fresh set of skis on there, they straighten the handlebars and send the guy back out there, and he gets in front of the leader, and things happen.
Well, what was this at the Sioux I-500 2-3 years ago? It was like 4/10,000ths of a second. I mean, they can't even figure it out how tight it was.
Yeah,
it came down to some other stuff. But bottom line, And that's after 500 laps, folks, at a mile-long track. And these guys are pounding on each other, going down the straightaway. It's phenomenally exciting racing. If you don't like oval enduro, you probably aren't really I don't know. It's NASCAR on sled, as far as I'm concerned.
You and I have actually gone back and forth on this, with me occasionally calling you a grumpy old man for fun, but
absolutely.
A lot of people love to harken back to the good old days in a lot of their sports. And let's use the NASCAR example. People will say, "Oh, why can't we have racing like in the '70s?" Well, yeah, when Richard Petty was winning most of the races by about 4 or 5 laps. You look back at the history of the Sioux, and there were a lot of years where the leader or the winner was first, and the guy who was in second was 5 laps back, and the guy that was in third was 8 laps back, and it just falls off rapidly. We've had some tremendous races at the Sioux in the last 10 years. It has been unbelievable what tight finishes we've had.
Oh, absolutely. It's very intense racing. And look at it this way, too. Last weekend, I think there were 6 sleds on the lead lap after 250 laps at Gaylord on a 3/8 mile track. And you talk about tight racing.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's insane what these guys are doing. It's so fun.
Yeah, and there's no lucky dog. There's no, okay, we'll give a guy a lap. Oh, there is in regular seasons?
Myra has the lucky stud award. Yep.
Okay. But just not the Sioux.
No, and that's controversial too. I was told yes and I was told no, but I don't want to go down there right now. I'm already in trouble with the Sioux, not the Sioux people, but the people on the world's fastest lap at the Sioux. That was a controversy last weekend. So.
Yeah, I saw. You've been in trouble with the folks from the Sioux before. You'll be again.
Let that go, man. They like me now.
Yeah. Well, they should. So let's get back to super sleds. So you've put up some tremendous numbers. Talk about the size of your audience and how many people you're engaging with this animal, because some of the things you post is just incredible.
We're at when I shut the group page down and went strictly, it was like 3 years ago, and went strictly on the business page. Not everybody, a lot of really good, smart business people said you're going to become insignificant. It's not going to work. You need the feedback. It was driving me nuts. The group page was wearing me out, and it was making me upset. So I just went to the business page. I think we're at, I don't know, I wrote it down here, 34,300, 400 members, followers now, 1.4 million views in the last 28 days. I mean, those are great numbers, but they don't, it's not like they're all sending me $1 a week, right? So it's good for the ego, and it is good for our sponsors and our marketing partners, but it overall, it's just, hey man, I do it because I like doing it, and I think it's cool. I think the sport's fun, and I can't imagine right now doing much of anything else. As long as I always say, as long as it's self-supporting, self-sufficient, and it's fun, I'll keep after it. The minute it's not fun, or the minute it doesn't cover the cost to keep doing it, I'll probably get into something else. Not saying I won't be into sleds, just might be something different.
And I've got to give a little bit of plug for Chris's project here. You can become a member for like $5.99 a month. And the money just comes right out of, frankly,
$4.99 a month.
$4.99 a month. Well, with tax, I think it's $5.29.
Yeah, that's a subscriber. John, we don't even need to push that. But thanks for bringing it up. But it's
just the content content you provide has such great value, and you have such a big following that I just think it would be good if more people would acknowledge that. But
I wish they would too. I wish everybody was subscribing to Snowgoer, and I wish we had Snow Week back. But you're doing what you're doing. And I know it's not easy right now. People that watch this right now don't understand how hard it is to get the sponsor and marketing partnerships that we enjoyed 5-10 years ago. It's a very tight industry. The hard winter hits John and I as much as it hits everybody else. Trust me.
Yes, it does. Looking at the live chat here, Mr. Brett Richter, who's been a guest on our show and hopefully will be again yet this season as we get into more oval racing.
Cool dude. Yep.
Great guy. He says he's watching 2 of the great minds in the world of snowmobiling. Boy, he's got a race to borrow.
Very well, do they? Thanks,
great
Brett.
mind. We got other people who are asking about the aforementioned rumors with Arctic Cat. It's a lot of the brands you've been hearing. It seems like the Argo one has the most smoke right now, but we will see.
It's close, but we can't get anybody to pull the trigger.
Chris, you might know this person. Do you know who goes by the name of Hurst Olds?
Golly, I don't on your page. They don't. Okay. We don't use a lot of those. What are they? What they're saying?
I know he likes some of the stuff you've had, and he said hi, Chris and John. Okay. I'm not sure who the person is behind it, but my father always had a Hurst Olds.
Sounds like a Michigan person.
So to have Hurst Olds following our show to me is a personal victory.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. So what travels you got coming up once the thumb gets all better?
Once the thumb, the stupidest mistake in my life. Once I can put a set of gloves on and get and drive the car again, and maybe grab some handlebars. This weekend is pretty much out. I've decided, just because it's not possible. I'd like to get to Triple Fest next weekend if everything works out here in Minnesota. There's going to be some more racing going on in Michigan, some local speed runs. The Raber Bay races in Michigan are fun. I've kind of trying to put a little super sled ride race together, which is really
Nice.
black market, under the radar, not talk about it stuff. This weekend also in Michigan. I just want to encourage this real quick, John. Snow Outlaws is going to be in Three Lakes, Wisconsin. 1,000 horsepower snowmobiles, the craziest sleds you've ever seen. Nitromethane, methanol, blowers, turbochargers are going to be amazing. And then we got the Myra season finale. It gets a Myra Race Network. And check that out. They're going to have sprints on Saturday, and the Pro Enduro Championship is going to come down to the last lap on Sunday. Yeah. And okay, I think I put some other stuff down here real quick. You got a minute here?
Yeah.
I don't want to dig too deep. But basically, there's a lot of great. There's a new ice drag coming up in New York State. Fast Eddie's is going to be doing his ice drag race in Houghton Lake, Michigan. Here's what makes me mad. And I don't know about you, but when people say the sport is dying, it makes the hair just go up on the back of my neck. Sport is not dying. It's just evolving, and we have to evolve with it.
Absolutely. And I mean, piling on to what you're talking about, especially in Wisconsin, because I'm headed over for the Hall of Fame weekend this weekend. So you got the ride with the champs, you got the Hall of Fame induction, you got the huge deal down in Manawa that we talked about a couple of weeks ago on the show. You'd mentioned the snow drags guys up in the Northwoods. I mean, when I get done Saturday with the Hall of Fame stuff, Sunday I got like 3 directions I want to head just to pick up a little bit more on the way home. It's this is prime time for events and activities, and we're mentioning some upper Midwest stuff. There's stuff going on out east. There's stuff going on out west.
They're racing ovals out in the Maritimes. They're racing ice drag sleds in New York. Next weekend out in New Hampshire, Roy Oliver, big racer from the east. Everybody knows the Golden Child. He's got his Back Lake Nationals coming up. So it's a good time to be in the sport. And maybe not right here in the Twin Cities, but there's a lot of snow in a lot of the snowbelt areas, John. People are riding snowmobiles.
One of our viewers just mentioned that in Central Ontario has an amazing comeback with almost 30,000 kilometers of trails open. It is. I was hanging out last week with some people from Ontario, and they're having their best winter in years. And so, last year was an anomaly where we didn't have snow anywhere. But this year there's snow around. You just got to be in the right place, and that's more the norm.
We got to get new sleds, get the non-currents out of the inventory in the pipeline, so the OEMs can build us some new cool hot rods, right? I mean, they're not going to have to get the inventory cleaned up.
Well, I've got Mr. Jeff Fisher sitting in the back room. Any parting words for you, Mr. Riley?
Just support the sport, get out, support, subscribe to John Steele, Super Sled, whatever you want to do, but go see a race or go trail ride, and that's the big thing. Get out and have fun.
And I'll give Chris a plug. If you are on Facebook and are into high-performance snowmobiling and you aren't following Super Sled Online, you're really missing out, because this guy covers it like nobody else in the sport right now.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, Chris.
Appreciate it. See you.
See you. So now we'll get rid of Mr. Riley. So you again are watching Snowgoer Live. Our sponsors, as always, are Arctiva, maker of a complete line of snowmobile outerwear, bibs, boots, gloves. They've got the base layers. They've got the head socks, you name it. They can be found at Arctiva.com. There, I found the logo. We're also sponsored by their sister brand, Z1R. Z1R makes a complete line of snowmobile helmets, whether you want a full face, a modular, some of the new styles that are kind of crossovers. Z1R's got it, and they can be found at Z1R.com. Also, if you're a two-wheel enthusiast, they've got stuff for you too, so check that stuff out. And then added before our last show, the fine folks at Gates Belts. Gates makes their G-Force belts for power sports enthusiasts, and they can be found at Gates.com. Whether you're looking for a belt for your snowmobile, your side-by-side, your ATV, you name it, Gates has got it. So we thank all of them for their sponsorship. So as I said, we've got a second guest lined up, and like Mr. Riley, I've known this guy for a long time and traveled all over the place to similar events. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Jeff Fisher. Jeff, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going, John? How are you guys doing out there?
Well, I hope they're doing well.
Yeah,
we'll see if any of them respond in the chat.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep. So Jeff Fisher is when I first met Jeff, I had a Chris story, so I might as well have a Jeff story. Jeff Fisher was the guy when we first started at Snow Week magazine that always had the coldest beer and the best parties during the watercross races. If you
Somebody
wanted to
has
get
to.
beer, you'd go and you'd interview, Mark Mackey after you won a race, or Mike Rowe or something, and then you'd look over and you'd see this crowd over at the Fisher trailer. But you're more than a party hound. You were a world championship in watercross.
Yeah, I won 2000 was my year. That's dating myself quite a bit, but there's a lot of tough competition, and now I get the luxury of crew chiefing my son's team, who he is now a 6-time world champion. So
yeah, and he just keeps piling them up.
yeah, he's doing well with that.
So back to the watercross thing in your era for a second. You were the first one to win it on a Yamaha, correct?
Yep. Yeah, I was the first one to ever win a pro open race back in Illinois, and then the first one to win a world championship and plus a points championship on a Yamaha.
Okay, very good. I back in that day, there seemed to be kind of a sky's the limit view of watercross. Were you part of the crew that went down to Lake Havasu and did that event down with the personal watercraft races?
Yep. Yeah, we did that like 3 years in a row. But
yeah,
that was a lot of fun. Yeah, I helped put that together, and we went down there and raced at the Nautica Inn on with the jet skis, and then they moved it to the other side of the island, which we couldn't race. It was so rough. They canceled jet ski racing that one year because it was so rough, and we ended up running under the London Bridge. The BRP race rep at the time felt sorry for us standing around not be able to do anything, and asked if he wanted to join his show under the London Bridge. So we raced at night under the London Bridge.
That's insane.
And that was a little interesting. It was lit up on the outside, but we went under the bridge around the pylons, and it was dark, and you couldn't see the waves. There was 5 of us, and luckily nobody went down. But it was that was one of those remember moments there.
Now the remember moment. I remember specifically way back when in the early 90s writing stories about watercross and how you wanted to have a certain lake that was only so deep so you could retrieve the snowmobiles easily with a certain pontoon that could pull them up and stuff. I imagine where you're racing in Arizona, they don't have the same thing because there's no personal watercraft that are sinking. If you sink one there, you might have some bigger troubles.
Yeah, and I found that out, and Dale found that out. The first year we went down, we couldn't get a retriever down there.
Okay.
I had a friend actually bring a boat down there, but we had no retriever. And I had a shock brake, which you wouldn't think it'd be a big deal, but my front shock collapsed and I just stuffed it in a corner and it went down. And we had 50 feet of rope on, and it was used up almost all the rope. And we were pulling it hand on this little boat. We were pulling it end over end, and we get it up. We start bringing it in, and all of a sudden I see the rope was caught on my handlebar, and that started rubbing through. Next thing you know, it broke. I watched my sled disappear out of sight, and it was probably in almost 20 feet of water. And I finally, our truck driver from Arctic Cat was with us. He's on the shore. He says, "Will you go down? When you say where it is, I'll dive in and hook it." And after a bunch of tries, we did it. Then we had a lull front end loader come and grab and pull it out. But it was that was one of those I thought my sled was going to stay in Havasu. Yeah.
I'm picturing the scene from Titanic shortly after they're yelling, Jack Rose, and then he sinks away. I'm picturing you having that same look on your face as your favorite little
snowboard
dropped to the bottom.
And it was windy, so you'd dive and you'd find it, and you'd blow 10, 20 feet away. So yeah, it was quite the experience.
So our guest again is Jeff Fisher. We're going to get to the Sledhead 24/7 stuff here in a little bit. But for those of you who've never experienced a watercross race, it is I'll especially give a plug for Grantsburg because it's just such a celebration of all. It's like a small town festival with bands and they've had arm wrestling competitions there and vendors and stuff. It's just a zany fun weekend oftentimes, but it's also the competition's pretty dang serious. I mean they're racing to win. They're not they're just put on a show.
Yeah. As much as it is a show, and we do need to put on a good show for the fans, but it's still the guys want to win. And so it is good. I mean, we have a couple races up at BIR. We're right in the center of the dragway there, just off the backside of the dragway on a pond there. That's a great site. I mean, we have a Lake Linden site. They're trying to put on a Grantsburg style, and they're doing a great job. And then our Ely is another event that those guys are putting on. They have live bands. They have one year they had Hairball there. They've had some big bands there playing, and Then we have a new one in Wakefield, Michigan, that they're doing a great job too. So we got some really good core race sites now that are doing a really good job promoting and getting it out there and putting on a good show.
And what Jeff is talking about there are events on the IWA circuit, which is based here in the upper Midwest. There's also watercross racing in the Northeast. Although they go fast and turn left instead of turn right or whatever. So there's a little bit of a difference in the way they approach it. You guys turn away from your clutches, right?
Yeah, and we've always wondered, it all, I guess, started more because of Grantsburg, actually.
Okay.
When they came off the island and they made a right, and then they took a right in front of the dam when they eventually started going circles rather than going straight.
Okay.
And that's kind of where it all evolved, and it's just kind of something that's just kind of hung in there. And it honestly makes more sense. You get your clutch and belt wet, you're you're not liking it.
Yep, you're going down. So what other type of racing? I know I've talked cross country racing with you in the past, but what other things did you compete in back in?
I mean, when I was younger, of course, we were motocross back in the late 70s, early 80s. Had my pro license in the 80s. So ran with all the fast guys back then. Then got into jet ski racing, and then I thought jet ski racing was cool. And I met a couple guys that were doing the watercross, and I'm like, well, that's stupid. It sinks. My jet ski, I get back on and go. And I tried one, and I was hooked. That was, back in the early 90s. So yeah, it kind of hooked me in there. But then the cross country racing, dabbled a little bit in pro vet snowcross, did a little bit of that. A lot of that was with the cross country came from running with, the I-500. I ran that 3 years. And,
okay.
So I've dabbled in a little bit of everything.
So now we'll put the conversation on fast forward. So through all this, you make a bunch of connections and you get to know a lot of people, and you're one of the most personal people I've ever met in my life. And suddenly, next thing you know, Jeff Fisher's appearing on our TV screens. How do you end up getting involved with the Sledhead 24/7 show?
I lost a bet. I mean, really. No, a friend of mine, John Daniels, and Paul Mack. John, make a long story short, he had wanted to start a TV show, and John came from the old ISOC cross country days, and I remember, that's got me into the cross country back in the early 90s. But he started a TV show, and it was kind of like, let's go do something with snowmobiles. Well, what are you going to do? We'll ride around in a field. We'll film it. People will want to watch it, which is true. We're snowmobilers. We just want to see snowmobiling. And that just kind of progressed from that. And that was back in like 05, 06 when we started doing that, going to, then people got a little more interested in that type of thing. So we started getting the manufacturers involved in our show. And kind of just from there, it's just exploded. And back when it was good, and the feeling too, it was, great. Yeah. Now it's a little tougher. I mean, bad snow, and people aren't paying for the marketing like they used to. So we got to look for different avenues. But so started doing that, and just started just being a test rider to next thing you know, I'm hosting the show. So
Right. So what just knowing you and talking to you, I know you've had some really fun adventures as a part of doing this, whether it's riding out west, certain people you've ridden with and stuff. Talk about some of the highlights that the things you've gotten to experience through the 24/7.
Well, riding with you, of course, John.
Well, yeah.
It is. I have such a passion for the sport of snowmobiling anyhow, but being able to go ride with, like you say, some really cool people, going to some really cool areas, riding the latest, greatest things, products, you get your hands on a lot of that stuff. But highlight wise, I mean, some of our out west trips are always fun. You get a chance to go ride with Carl Kuster. I've ridden a few times with him up out of his place, and fun running, with, you get out with Chris Brandt and Dan Adams and Shane Skinner and all those guys you get a chance to go ride with. Rob and Dave were another bunch that was always fun. I rode with them probably more than any of them, because those guys were you always just showed up and away we went. We always had a really good time. Around here, it's always fun. We went out to, Levi and I went out and did a deal out in Maine years ago for Polaris, and that was fun riding it up in that, but they called it the Forks, and we rode a few days there. And that was when Levi was still racing a lot, and he was so excited to put trail miles on. He kept asking me, how many miles are we going to go? How many miles are we going to go? Yeah. we had had fun doing that.
Yeah.
But just the people you meet and things you get to do. Go right up in Canada, go with BRP, and you go up into right at their test center, and which is some just remote deals. Like we went there one time and everything was in French, and we're riding along, and I'm sure you were with us. And I asked one of the guys from Skidoo, I go, yeah, how come nobody else is riding on these trails? Or, we ran into the groomer. I'm like, no, this is our private BRP. And so it surprised me. I wasn't quite, that they had that kind of trail system at their test center with their own personal groomer and, all that.
Yeah. And to use an old Steve Martin line back when he was a comedian, those French have a different word for everything. But,
yep.
Couple comments couple things in our comment here. Yes, Joel, we really are live. Michigan Rev says he misses watching Sledhead 24/7, but I know you have some more stuff coming up. Talk about what you guys got coming up on the show.
Yeah, we're on there. We'll do some YouTube channels. Of course, we're going to go do our with the 26 here, and shortly here we'll be able to go out and ride those. We've been playing a lot of our stuff on our live stream for our ISOC racing too. Sledhead 24/7 and the ISOC are sisters.
Absolutely.
So we are playing that on. If you watch the live stream on Flow, they'll be on all that.
Okay.
Just shorter segments. Yeah, I mean, I would love to get it back to the full program again. Hopefully, we can.
Yeah.
Get some good winners and get everybody excited. Maybe we can get back to some hour programs again.
Yep, there's kind of like whenever I've had so many people tell me we got to bring back Snow Week, and it's like, well, if all of you people would have been subscribing to Snow Week and advertising, and Snow Week would still be here. But
yeah, exactly. Yep.
Times change and challenges come up.
Yep.
So again, you're watching Sledhead 24/7 with our guest Jeff Fisher. Jeff, you brought up the snowcross thing. I went out to the Canterbury Snowcross here a few weeks ago, and I heard this voice from out of the PA system, and I thought, I think I know that voice. You're doing some announcing for ISOC now.
Yeah, Paul had he had a hard time. He couldn't get to some of the races. He did Valcourt, and he's gonna do New York, being he's based out of New York, and that frees me up to get out for a ride we're going to be doing here next week. But so I'll do the rest of them. So I did Canterbury and Deadwood, and I'll be doing ERX, Eagle River, and then Duluth. And it's a lot of fun, working with Robbie. I've known Robbie Melanowski a lot of years, and so it's kind of fun working with him. But they called me and said, hey, can you help us out and fill in? And I'm like, how about if I just do a couple? And they're like, no, how if you just do them all? And I'm going, okay, well, we're in. And I stumbled. I know I wasn't being a play-by-play announcer. I thought, I'll just kind of fill in. And they're like, no, you're the guy. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay, well, I mean, I just throw me to the wolves, and but they're a great bunch of guys to work with. Our producer Joe Horowitz out there, he's funny. Harmonica Joe, little shout out to him, and then and working with everybody, all the gals and the guys at ISOC are just great to work with and more than helpful. So
kind of like your intro to TV. I'll say, no, you're the host.
Exactly. I'm like, oh, okay, but it's fun. I enjoy it. There again, I get to go and meet cool people. I mean, and it's really a lot of fun.
So back to snowcross for a second, and just got done having this conversation with Riley in a sense. But a lot of people love to look back, and God, I remember when, Chris Vincent or Jack Struthers or Kirk Hibbert, or then the Blair and Tucker era that was so popular and stuff. And they like to act like there's nothing interesting going on in snowcross racing because they don't know the current stars, but there's really good racing going on now. I mean, talk about some of the competitions and some of the tight classes from pros on down.
Well, I mean, from the juniors on up, I mean, it's crazy. And I was thinking, now that I'm announcing, I got to pay more attention, because normally I'd watch and I knew who I wanted to watch, but now you're watching everything. But in our pro light class, you got some, there's different winners all the time. And in our pro class, I mean, right now, Emil looks like, he looks like the guy to beat right now, especially with Ishel out. But yet there's, you get the Jordan LaBelle. I mean, like Jordan, he had a hard time at Deadwood. I talked to him on Saturday night after Deadwood. We were walking out together, and I'm like, God, buddy, you had a tough go. And he goes, these little tracks. He goes, I'm so excited to go to Valcourt and look at how Valcourt and how well he was doing. I mean, he's he's a good rider, and considering he's only a 2-year pro, I mean, he's doing great. And then
Yeah.
Levi's guys, Peterson and Bester. I mean, they've had some good, if they can get out front and get smooth, I mean, they can,
Yeah.
In good. And then Jacob Yerk. I mean, my guy Jacob, he keeps, he's got his moments of greatness and then not so good, but he's right there too. So,
but for a guy that's really running without factory support and who's kind of, had to really carry the Arctic Cat program for the Arctic Cat brand, he is just doing incredible some weekends. It's really fun to see. And then you throw in all of a sudden 1 week a Daniel Benham will show up in the front, and then the next week, Francis Peltier will show up front, and it's just there's so many names, and if people will pay attention enough to get into these individual stories, there's a lot of stories to tell. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on.
Oh yeah,
and the racing is really tight.
Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, we could go on and on. I mean, the Gustav, and we got so many racers that are doing. That are up front. I mean, Cody Cam, he looked great at a lot of the race. He's you get in Deadwood where you got to get your elbows up and scrap a little bit, and Cody's right there and he's doing well,
And the coverage is good.
I mean, and as the tracks change and evolve different tracks, I mean, the other riders shine,
Yeah. And the coverage is really fantastic. And I'm not saying that just because you're involved. In fact, just because you and I are friends, I'd probably never say that. But but seriously, I mean, none of us likes to open our own wallet, but boy, I tell you what, my subscription to Flow, I watch that as much as anything between the oval racing that's on there, the Sioux is on there, the ISOC stuff, their snowcross stuff is on there. You got car racing and all this stuff. And it, especially in winters when I can't ride a lot locally, it fills a lot of good nights watching some really cool racing from all over the country.
Well, yeah, you think about it, how Flow, I mean, it was cool about Flow too. You can watch it later. You don't have to watch it, even if you're not, there, but yeah, Flow has done a great job with all the racing. I mean, it's cool how that's coming around. And
again, if as fans, if you learn the backstory of a lot of these people, it just makes it so much more interesting. I've got a loaded question for you.
Okay.
I think most people who know me, I like all forms of racing, but I'm really an oval racing junkie, and I've thought at different times how you compare oval racing to snowcross racing. Oval racing really is people from a few states and provinces, and snowcross racing has become more of a worldwide sport where now all of a sudden you have all these people from Scandinavia coming over and running at the very highest level. But there's a trade-off on that, and I remember this back when it was in IndyCar racing, when there was a bunch of racers from all over the world coming, and people were saying there's not enough Americans racing, and that's why fans aren't tuning in. Having such a big Scandinavian profile in snowcross, does that help the sport? Does it hurt the sport? I don't know how I feel about it.
Our numbers are up. Our entry numbers are record. I mean, they keep going up and up. So that's showing there's still, maybe we're not seeing it as a pro class, but in our junior classes and our sport classes, they're having to add classes just because there's getting to be so many riders in them.
Yeah.
And then we're getting back to Flow. I mean, our numbers are just the hundreds of thousands in Russia and Scandinavia and Finland are watching. I mean, they got to be if they're watching it live, they're watching it 3 a.m. or something,
Yeah.
But, the numbers are there. I mean, like I heard Chris say, the sport isn't dying. It's getting stronger. It makes me nervous that our average age of riders are getting a little bit higher. We're starting to push the 60s for average age, but the enthusiasts are there. The racers are there.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're obviously involved in a lot more than snowcross racing. I mean, when you and I have talked other times, I think you and David do things like the ditch banger and Levi's Tri-5, and you got all sorts of other things going on. What are things that you and your family are involved in these days?
Well, I mean, we'll go do Levi's. Levi's wife Kristen talked to me a couple of years ago into coming and judging the Tri-5.
Okay.
And that's fun. So I had Jeremy Meyer last year came with, and we went and judged that, and that was fun. But then we do the that MESC, which is they're doing the snow drags. We did a few of the snow drags last year, but now we're so busy with we have snow around here, it's tough to get away. But we're gonna go do the Fond du Lac one and then the Giants Ridge. That's fun. We got some, Dave. Last year was kind of fun. We threw a sled together on Monday night, dragger 900 turbo boost, and showed up there, made 4 runs up the hill testing, and then he won the class. So
Nice.
we guessed pretty well on some setups, but we got a few sleds. He's got a couple guys. They got 3, 4. I think he's gonna have 3 sleds. We're gonna go run at those 2 events, so that'll be fun. They're pretty low key.
He might have a slight advantage in having a father who knows how to tune a sled, which gets us to all the stuff you got going on in the background there. You're talking to us from your performance shop, speed shop, repair shop. Tell us about Motorsports Plus.
Motorsports Plus. We're in South St. Paul and Minnesota. Yeah, we just do parts service on motorcycle, ATV, snowmobile. We got, do a lot of dyno work, the remapping of bikes mainly, the Harleys and a lot of the crotch rocket bikes, but just general service. We got a full service department and keep everybody happy and fixed up.
Very good. So let's wrap it up with a couple of random questions. You got a cousin you just found out about who's athletic enough to try anything but has never been snowmobiling. Where are you going to take him or her for give me a mountain place, give me a trail place where you're going to.
Well, trail place, it'd be my favorite in upper Wisconsin, up in the peninsula there.
Yeah.
Because if I don't like the trails, I'll go another route, Go up there in the mountains. I'd probably take them to West Yellowstone just because you can trail ride, pretty easy meadows, or you can, if you find out they can hang, you got some areas to go in.
Yep. So you've, I know I mentioned earlier that I'm headed over to the Hall of Fame banquet this weekend, the Ride with the Champs. I know you've been over to that. Yep. What am I in for? Give me a preview.
I kind of miss now. I had a friend of mine was over doing the laps today, and he just had a blast. And it is, you get you're going to have Tim Bender, Brad Hewlings, Steve Hoole was telling me he's going, to the ride tomorrow for the Yamaha ride. You're going to be able to talk to the Karpiks, there's so many people from the industry. It's like old home week. It's so fun there. And then listening to some of the stories from the inductees it's just hilarious, stuff you just don't know that they did, or you're like, wow, that's cool. So yeah, it's fun. It's fun to be there with so many people that are just passionate about this sport.
Yeah. Somebody in our chat earlier, I was just trying to page through it and see who it was, but had mentioned that the 3 old guys are starting their cross country tour by taking a ride from Grand Rapids over there, along with Tom Rowland from Thomas Snow Sports. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to seeing them. But yeah, it's I used to go to the Hall of Fame banquet all the time in the 90s when it was Eagle River weekend, and then there was a falling out between the Derby track owner people at that time and the Hall of Fame people at that time, and so the two kind of pulled away from each other. And so I've missed out on it now for several years. And I'm so excited to get back there because, just even I'm on the board of directors for that now. And every time I've gone over there for a board meeting, just the machines that are in that building and the stories that are on the plaques, and then all the stories you hear behind the stories are always so interesting. It's successful snowmobile. Well, people who are successful in anything that involves competition, I think always have great stories to tell because they have to be so focused and dedicated.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's like we were saying a few years ago when we were there, it was the Karpik brothers got up, and to hear all 3 of them kind of banter at each other was just, it was a comedy show, to say the least. It was fun. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And soon your role as race dad will pick up again with watercross. When do we get rolling in the watercross season?
The first race is beginning of June at BIR. So yeah, if anybody wants to go see the fastest show on H2O, that's where you're going to want to go. But we're already kind of planning a little bit. I know David's got certain builds he's wanting to do and parts he's starting to organize, and I'm sure we'll be in a month or so we'll be starting to go through some things. I mean, honestly, we could dust them off. All 3 of his sleds are sitting the same way he ended the season with, which was really good. We could probably dust them off and show up, but you can't do that. You gotta do something.
Yep, got to do something. And to me, one of the better parts about watercross racing is exactly what I was talking to Riley about. The snowmobile season doesn't have to end when the snow goes away. You adapt, and so whether people are racing on grass or on asphalt or on water, There's still ways to go and have fun or go to a vintage show or whatever it is. But either way, hopefully that talk of when the snow melts gets put off for a little bit here. We're still owed plenty of good winter.
Oh yeah, there should be some good riding yet.
Yep, absolutely.
But yeah, and one thing I was going to say too about the watercross is, you've gone and just seen our oval racing. We've now added our Le Mans race with the jump in it, lefts, rights, and a jump. And it to watch, there's a half dozen guys that can ride, and they look like they're on stand-up jet skis. I mean, they just are just so impressive how they're going left, rights, and hitting the jump, and way more. Everybody's excited about that. They do it overseas, a lot bigger. Ours is a little tighter, a little more precise turning, which I think is kind of adds a little bit, the excitement too.
Yeah. The last time I went to Grantsburg, there was an exhibit of the Le Mans then. And so I could definitely see a future for it. So absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, we will spin you loose because we're supposed to try to keep these things under an hour. So I really appreciate you joining us. We will see you somewhere very soon when you and I are both sitting with helmets on, pulling a little trigger.
I'm sure it'll be in a week or so.
All right. Perfect. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Okay. Take care.
Bye. So once again, you are watching Snowgoer Live. Our guests tonight were Chris Riley from Super Sled Online and Jeff Fisher from Sledhead 24/7. Although each of them is involved in a bunch of other stuff, as you could probably tell by their various stories. Like to thank our sponsors again, which are Arctiva, Z1R, and Gates Belts. They can be reached at arctiva.com, z1r.com, and gates.com. So those all make sense. As I said, it's for me, it's Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame weekend. Today they had the Legend Laps going on at the Eagle River Derby track. I think Riley mentioned it. Fisher just mentioned it here a few minutes ago. If you're on Facebook, Mark Resch posted a bunch of videos where he interviewed different people, and you got to see, he had pictures of, Brad Hewlings and Gary Moyle and Tim Bender and all these different, historic names in our sport who were back in their leathers and back running laps around the track. And that just looked really cool. I got to get over there next year for that. Duty kept me here this year. So tomorrow night is a fish fry there, where it's an annual event, kind of a more casual event, but lately they've had speakers there. And this year it's kind of an all-star cast of people associated with Yamaha, from, Steve Hool and Guy Useldinger and Bobby Donahue and Tim Bender, who I already mentioned, and Jim Kettinger and some of the other people who were involved behind the scenes. Greg Marier from Yamaha fame has done a great job of pulling together a really cool team of people. They'll be up on stage tomorrow night, so that's going to be fabulous. Then Saturday morning we get up, we do the Ride with the Champs, where we go for this long trail ride, visit a few big collections of old snowmobiles, visit the museum, do some stuff over there. And then tomorrow night is the induction ceremony, where some true all-stars are going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. And you can learn more about that by visiting the Snowmobile Hall of Fame website, or look for stories for it on snowgore.com. So again, it should be a great night of stories, but a lot of other stuff going on this weekend. We'd mentioned Manawa. Quite frankly, I'm going to try to get up early Sunday morning, drive down to Manawa before I return to the Twin Cities, because that sounds like a really cool event that I've yet to take in. Back to the Hall of Fame for a second. If any of you have been watching the bidding on the very last Yamaha snowmobile built, the Sidewinder SRX. I'm just going to look at a second screen here for a second. Last I saw, that thing was sitting at $105,000. It is still at $105,000, but I'm guessing some people are holding out for a late crash on bids. That's all going to wrap up at the banquet, and Yamaha officials will be there and stuff. So that'll be really fun. We hate to see them lose or leave the sport, but we're pretty impressed with some of the stuff they're doing here at the end to raise money for the good of the sport of snowmobiling. So God bless them. As we said, waiting on some Arctic Cat answers. As soon as I know anything solid, I'll certainly put it on our website and on our social media. I don't want to, I'm not real comfortable throwing out rumors that I haven't heard more directly. So we haven't done a lot with it other than when there has been actual announcements, but keep your eye on it for that. Separate of that, big announcement for next week's Snowgoer Live. So 1 week from right now, next Thursday night at 7:30 Central Time, we'll have two special guests, and they will be people from Ski-Doo, because Ski-Doo on Wednesday, so the day before, is going to unveil their 2026 snowmobile lineup. So you'll get to see everything that Ski-Doo has coming. And then the next night, you'll be able to join us here on Snowgoer Live and hear about it directly from Ski-Doo officials and ask them questions in the chat. And your questions will be really important to the success of that next week. So please join us. It should be a lot of fun. As I said, I may or may not already know some things that are going on with Ski-Doo with the 2026 lineup, but you'll want to tune in. So join us next week. And other than that, I know not everyone's going to be at the same places I am this weekend. Wherever you go, whatever you do, get out and enjoy this sport, whether you're attending an event, whether you're riding, whatever you're doing, watching on TV even. We still have the best sport in the world, and I just wish you all could get out and enjoy it as much as you can before another winter gets away from us. So this again has been Snowgoer Live, sponsored by Arctiva, G-Force, and Z1R. We will see you next week on this same channel here at Snowgoer Live. Thanks, everybody.